I have a special day today because day 3 is actually for my mum, and I haven't taken any special requests or predicted what I might draw for people, but my mum lost her precious cat Toby during lockdown, who died probably of old age, but he lay down for 4 days and didn't move, didn't eat, and they knew it was time. And it was bad enough that my mum and dad have both been shielding, really, so to lose their gorgeous cat Toby was difficult. So I decided that for my mum today I'm going to attempt to draw Toby, and I'm going to use the knocking back technique again, just because I want to create that sense of movement, life and texture in the animal fur. And also it's a great way of drawing if you don't have if you don't know if you're going to be accurate from the beginning. So instead of trying to draw really careful lines, you can sort of just start blocking in. So I'm going to just kind of quickly sort of mark out the kind of rough shape of Toby. I'm going to have him sitting, because my dad sent me a really beautiful photograph of him, and he's literally just sat staring straight at the camera. So yeah, I'm just going to start off with getting the making sure I get the whole proportion right, so it doesn't go off the page. So just the kind of main measurements, really. I think already his head might be too big, so I'm just going to make sure. He was quite a thin cat with this photograph. He's looking quite well and plump. Might have been one of his younger years. He was a rescue cat. And he was black and white, so there's definitely some markings going on here. So I think he'll fit within my shape, and I might put some, I don't know, some flowers or leaves or something around him. But for now, I've kind of got the main sort of shape, so I'm just going to use my graphite stick to start blocking in some tone. Now I've kind of got the main features. What I tend to do is find a rubber, an old rubber, it doesn't really matter what it is, but I tend to chop it with a craft knife, so I've got nice sharp edges, and eventually they start to look blacker and blacker and blacker, and have to chop more bits off them, or you know, to keep them nice and sharp. But this is kind of just the fun part, where you can just start to rub right through it. Sometimes you feel like you're losing all the drawing that you've done, but it just creates a bit of texture straight away, and the rubber drags out lines from the dark areas that you've created and sort of spreads the mark making into the paper. And you can go in any direction, but I kind of think of it almost like, you know, when a fly is buzzing around and they're going in a million directions at once. It's kind of a bit like that. If you go in a variety of different directions, it just creates a bit more balance. So now we have a bit of movement in the lines and things like that. I want to add some more dark tone because he's really quite dark, so I'm going to go in and add a little bit more and go a bit harder with the pencil. And each time you do it, so the first time you do it is quite rough, it's like really rough, and then you sort of add a bit more, but you make your marks a little bit smaller each time, and you might make your rubbings out a little bit smaller each time. while I'm doing this, I'd just like to say thank you so much to all of you who are commenting and sharing and watching the updates each day. This is a big challenge. I knew it was a big challenge when I set it for myself, but I was so happy that everybody took it to the heart and joined in and kind of bought their dates, and it's really important to try and keep the arts alive at the moment, and you're definitely doing your bit, so thank you so much. So it's almost like this figure emerges. Now, I don't actually draw that often, and not as often as I'd like, and I certainly don't draw animals very often either. It's not something that I do a lot of at all, but the principles are kind of the same. When you're drawing anything really is looking, learning to look and learning to see. When you see things all around you in the world, you're sort of taking photographs with your eyes, and some people are really, really good at retaining that information. They can draw something without looking at anything because they've sort of remembered what things look like. And other people don't hold things in their visual memory quite as easily. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you, it just means you don't necessarily have that way of looking at the world. And so when you do sort of look at things and you really pay attention to them, like there's all this talk about, you know, being present in the moment and really looking and really seeing or really hearing, or listening or being present with your children and all these kinds of things. It makes sense because you're really using your senses to the maximum. So if you think about your visual sense, you know, next time you go for a walk, notice everything around you. You really look. I found this technique when I was reading through The Guardian magazine years ago, and they had a little supplement about drawing, and one of the techniques was this knocking back technique where you draw about, and they described it as making a drawing look like a comfortable old jumper that's kind of worn.
Clock ticks, 4 turns, lines form on skin. Danger and grace are yours in equal parts. That's living, that's living, that's living, that's living. Tinker, a tailor. tailor, an artist, a smile.